I think the problem with human beings is we don't do moderation very well. The reason doom scrolling is so successful is because you quickly forgot that you were spending 2 hours doing that, and when you were meant to do 5 minutes, right? And here with AI, of course, I always hear everyone saying, but it's always about using it in moderation and using it while being very intelligent. And of course, that's the aspirational model. And I would say, being married to someone that's dyslexic, I do see the angle. For him, that was a game changer because he struggles to write. So I've seen specifically on neurodiversity how that could be really helpful. And healthcare, same on scanning breast cancer. They are good positive. But overall for our sector, I think for me, the impact on the brain is drastic. Like when you have conversation with people, you can generally see that the intellectual capacities have decreased. And I just think that is absolutely crazy in a sector where we are selling our brain. All I'm selling is my intellectual and creative abilities. That is all, and obviously my social skill set that goes with that. That is all I'm retailing. The idea that you will be harming this in my head is crazy. So I think there needs to be a larger understanding of that creative impact, and as such, AI policies that protects it. Like, how do you support your employees, maximize your company and growth, but have a way in which your employees are not just fully addicted to the tool. And also, like, I think, I am always a bit skeptical on let's all rush into it and train and give all our data for free to private companies to earn it before we've had a bit of that assessment. Maybe it's because I love publishing academically, but you see that reports with MIT, I'm sure there'll be several others that are going to come over the coming years. Don't we just want to be moderated and wait for further academic research to be done on something that is so fundamentally changing the way we interact with people and content?
Yeah, and it's changing so fast. I've worked with assistants who've predominantly just been on AI. I'm like, where's the instinctual thinking in terms of if I'm talking to said client, find out what his holes are in terms of the conversation, and I can pick an idea out. So that instinctual thinking, is drifting. So I definitely, echo that. Talking on artists, creatively, which AI is moving at a faster rate than them. How can they deal with that in that process?
I think, again, this is where I bring up the dyslexic mention of my husband, but I have several artists who are also dyslexic. So I think it depends on where is the input. If it's experimentation, fantastic. But that's where, again, I'm so conscious of privileges, as you know, and inequalities, that me with tons of experience in my sector, I can spot the right sources on the research that my researcher will provide that is sometimes based in AI, right? It's easy for me to think, actually, at a sector level, that's not true. That source is correct. That source is not that valid. You can navigate that really easily. My worry is always, if you don't have that knowledge, you think you're being very clever because it looks very clever to you. And there's always those studies that shows that we trust machines for some unknown reason more than human beings, even though we know that it is private companies and human beings behind them, but we still trust machines above everything else. So it will be interesting within that context of the junior who doesn't know how to spot that and actually gets poorly trained as a result. So I think it's about who has education about the tool. And, again, why I'm a proponent of visual literacy, here we're discussing digital literacy. It's basically always about how can you be literate, more than launching yourself into something without literacy. And that is what's going to create the biggest gap between who is leveraged with this tool and propelled versus who actually does not even realize how obvious it is that they're using the tool. And we all have many examples of that, and therefore is not going to be able to move forward. 5
to 10 years, where do you see the art world heading?
Well, as we know, the art world is going through a tough patch. I think, first of all, millennials that we are not so young anymore. I'm 36, but holding on to my mid-30s. I feel we are coming to be probably the generation that is going to rule and govern the sector, as much as it's definitely a sector where you can age for a very long time in it. But I think that dynamic is probably going to shift again. What is discussed, what is done. There's a great wealth transfer of women right now, where UBS put out a report that women high net worth are one of the fastest growing segments in terms of wealth. So again, who is supporting the artists and collecting them, and who wants to see what is completely shifting. And I think through that, therefore, if who is having a stronger voice in the art world is shifting, the type of artists we're going to have and support is going to be different. I mean, the Venice Biennale last week was a very good example of that. You've seen, I'm sure, the controversy around the Russian pavilion being on display there. And for us, we were supporting the Cameroon pavilion because it was the very first time historically the pavilion could be there at the Venice Biennale, and our artist Bea, therefore, was the main curator and artist of the pavilion. So complete opposite thinking, where you have Russia on the one end, which absolutely shouldn't be partially at the Venice Biennale in the context. And on the other end, new countries who finally can make an entry. And I think that's what I mean, is that I think who is going to lead the sector is changing. Already the Middle East is leading substantially more than it was 10, 15 years ago. I think Cameroon is a fantastic example of countries who are entering these discussions and want to lead it forward. Gender is changing too. And I think millennials as a generation, we have slightly different value system. Yeah. I don't think the gap is as big as Gen Z's, but I do think we have different value systems. So that's going to reinform again how people consume art, how they want the transactions to operate, what level of transparency they would want it, what level of value system they want to see in the companies that rules the art world. Obviously, I'm biased to think I'm excited because it does go a lot in our way so far. So, I can only say I'm excited as such. But yes, there's a lot of change coming for that reason. It's a change of generation.
And if a young creative wants to build something in a meaningful way in the art industry today, what would you tell them?
I think it's there's the old adage of everyone else is taken, so might as well be yourself. But I feel a lot of the conversation we had today is on how our different backgrounds ultimately bring different answers to the sector that we end up working with. I'm not saying it's easy to get in the sector when you don't come from the sector, for sure. It was hard. But it does mean that once you're in, your way to approach the way you do things and the way you operate is very different, and your value system is very different, which by definition is a huge amount of richness. You're substantially more culturally rich for doing that. Mm-hmm. So it's to kind of try and understand what is it that I bring that is different, especially in a sector that is changing.
Amazing. Beautiful way to end it. Thank you, Marine, for being a part
Pleasure.
of the Inside the Art World podcast.
Pleasure.
All right, thank you.